Okay. Hello, everybody. We're just getting started here. We're so excited to have you guys at FriesenPress's first webinar, where we're going to do a little bit of self-publishing in 2025, myth versus reality. I hope you all can hear me okay. If there's any issues whatsoever, please pop something into the chat. I do have my colleague Brian with me today, who is moderating. And he is going to be keeping an eye on chat and Q&As and all of that stuff along the way. So let's proceed with haste. So thank you so much again for attending. I'm going to give you a little bit of, I'm going to start with a little bit of information about me. So my name is Leanne Janzen. I lead the publishing consultant team here at FriesenPress, and I have been with FriesenPress now for 4 years. I started as a publishing consultant, which is essentially a project manager, and we go through and we take authors through the process. So we help coordinate editing, cover design, layout, and all of that. And I got a really intimate knowledge from working with authors one-on-one on what authors knew and what they didn't know going into the publishing process. And we had a lot of authors who were really well suited to working with us, and others that were perhaps more technologically advanced or were maybe suited for another avenue. So something that I'm really passionate about is early education and coming into writing organizations and going to conferences and things like that, and educating authors as early as we can in their writing career, so that they can take a peek at their plan and start to plan their trajectory earlier than if they're just finding out right after they're done writing. So me and my colleague Brian, who is moderating, as I mentioned earlier, decided it was time for us to do some webinars of our own. So yes, we're going to go through, I'm going to do a little bit of a history of self-publishing, a really brief overview. I really like it. It's a lot of fun. Some myths versus realities, what to look for and what to look at when you're choosing your self-publishing partner. And make sure you pop your questions into the Q&A section. I can see a couple of raised hands there. So I am going to encourage you to just pop something into the chat if you have your hand raised with your question, chat or Q&A, so that Brian can take a peek at it for me while we go along. And hopefully we're going to get to all of the questions, but if not, we're going to get to as many as we can and plan to follow up with people as necessary afterwards as well. So without further ado, again, I can see some raised hands, so make sure you pop something into the Q&A so that Brian can make sure that we're logging all the questions as we go. So let's go. A little history of self-publishing. So self-publishing has been around for so much longer than any of us, I think, even realize. Excuse me. All the way, Charles Dickens, as you can see here, 1843, Charles Dickens had a royalty dispute with his publisher, which caused him to self-publish A Christmas Carol. Self-publishing, 1843. It's been around that long. It's not a new concept. It's really come a long way, but it was possible, and it's been happening for that long, which is so exciting. Charles Dickens did, though, have to do a publishing print run of his book of 6,000 copies. And I always say, I hope that he had a big garage, because where did he put them all? I don't know. We also had, in 1931, The Joy of Cooking was self-published, the first print run of The Joy of Cooking, which has undergone several print runs since then and been picked up by a traditional publisher, but originally was self-published, which is really exciting. Irma did a print run of 3,000 books. So between 1843 and 1931, print run quantities, we're already starting to see a decline. So we had 6,000 to 3,000 there. Then in 1989, arguably the biggest change in the self-publishing world was the invention of the World Wide Web, www. This gave authors the ability to start promoting online and releasing digital copies of their books. To me, that is what made self-publishing even possible. Without the World Wide Web, large shifts in the industry would not have been possible. So if anyone's looking for the turning point, that's the one that I like to point out as the biggest one. Then in 1997, LSI was founded. So LSI, for anyone who doesn't know, is Lightning Source. And Lightning Source is print on demand technology, which means we can print one book at a time. So out the window goes the necessity for large print runs of 6,000 and 3,000. We now have the ability for retailers to list books and order one copy at a time for their customers. So that was another really big shift in terms of needing to have books on hand versus not. And then I'm going to skip right on ahead because we did have Stephen King self-publish. Of course, we have in 2009, FriesenPress was founded. But I believe that in 2020, when we had a global pandemic, not only did it give writers more time to write, it allowed and made, because of the increase of people self-publishing, it allows us to make bigger changes quicker now in the industry because there are so many more self-publishing authors. We were seeing industry changes and industry evolutions long before 2020, but 2020, because of the influx of the ability to self-publish and the number of authors who started to self-publish, that is when we were able to see the industry have big and fast and effective changes. And yeah, so it's a little bit of the history of self-publishing, and it doesn't bring us quite to where we are today. Since 2020, we've had many big and fast changes, but the biggest last impact that I would say we saw was in 2020. And with that, we're going to move on to some myths and realities. And for me, this is educational. I want this to be so educational for all of you. However, it's also a little fun. So, myth number 1, self-publishing is for the untalented. Let me just start by saying this just simply isn't true. We need to think of traditional publishers as businesses. So just like any business, they create a business plan. They create a strategic plan in advance. So a book that gets rejected from a traditional publisher doesn't necessarily mean that it is not a good book that is worth getting out into the world. It does not mean that it is not of a high written quality. Most of the time, what it means is the type of book you've written doesn't fit into their strategic plan for the year. So you have to think of all of the hundreds of thousands of manuscripts they get every year, and they have already created their business plan ahead of the curve. So it does not mean that you are untalented or that self-published books in general are untalented. For example, we work with authors often who have previously been traditionally published and choose to self-publish their most recent work. I had the pleasure of working with Sue Janzen a couple of years ago, and she's a very successful New York Times best-selling author who to this day is still selling copies of her books. And she had a project that she was working on and didn't want to change her most recent book. She didn't want to adjust to what the traditional publishers wanted it to be. She wanted to keep it and its integrity and what she put together. So she decided to self-publish her latest book, I believe. I don't think she did another one after that. So she chose to self-publish that book. Very successful, traditionally published author made a choice to self-publish. And that is happening more and more every day because of the ability to maintain creative control and ownership of that content. Many awards now also recognize self-published books, as well as many awards have been created specifically to recognize self-published books. We have Canadian Book Club Awards, we have Whistler Independent Book Awards. And so it is very clear that self-published work comes from talented people. And so that's myth number one, busted. Moving on to myth number two. Self-publishing requires huge print runs. We already talked about this a little bit in my history of self-publishing. And the reality is that this used to be true. It used to be a requirement that Charles Dickens needed 6,000 copies of his book to make it affordable for him to distribute. And with the creation and founding of Lightning Source, authors can now hold small quantities of their books. They can order anywhere from 1 to thousands of copies, but they can have 20, 30, 50, 100 books on hand for them. And the print on demand technology allows your readers to buy one at a time. So it really, truly just isn't true. Plain and simple, that you need to purchase huge print runs of your book if you self-publish. Should you have books on hand? Absolutely, you should have books on hand. It is always necessary for a self-publishing author to, I always say, keep a stack in your trunk so that when you're driving by a bookstore or going by somewhere that would make sense to have your book in, you have them on you all the time. So you should have some books, but it's not a requirement to have thousands and thousands of copies anymore. Myth number two, busted. Moving on to myth number three. Self-publishing will never make you money. I hear a really common saying. I attend lots of conferences for writers and speak with lots of writers and bookstore owners and people in the industry every day. And one of the most common sayings in the industry is that those who write to only make money will seldom ever succeed. And that is because those who are writing to only make money are not necessarily writing about what they're passionate about. So, right, this isn't necessarily about the money-making aspect, but I always say, write what you're passionate about, and your readers will find you. Look at authors like Sarah J. Maas, who wrote the ACOTAR series, and it published originally, I believe, in 2016, and became the success that it is in about 2021. So they were published for years before it found its audience. So while full-time writing is a dream for some authors, it does sometimes take time to get there and find your audience. And what's really great with the self-publishing industry is that self-publishing allows you to earn a higher royalty than traditionally published paths do. So you have the ability to choose your book's price, which therefore means you get to choose your book's royalty. And so when you are pricing out your book with FriesenPress, when you're pricing out your book, you're going to know what your royalty payment is going to be right when you're book pricing. And you don't split that royalty with anyone. You get to keep that royalty. You know what it is and you set it up. Also, with the speed to publication, self-publishing is much faster than traditional publishing. So the ability to earn on multiple books quicker is there as well. So not only do you have the ability to have a higher royalty with your books, but you're able to publish more books in quicker succession and therefore be earning from multiple books at the same time. So I've seen authors who get out there, market their books, and enjoy a really great royalty payment. And I've seen the flip side too. So there is the ability to make money when you're self-publishing. I think that envelops all of my thoughts there. So myth number 3, of course, busted. But there is that option there. And if it's your dream, you're going to know it's your dream. A little bit of my wisdom there for you too. I feel like I'm cruising through these. So Brian, if you feel like I'm going too fast or we've got lots of questions, feel free to interrupt me. Moving on to myth number 4. Self-publishing hurts your chances of being traditionally published. Now, I'm going to start with this to say this also used to be something that was true, but it really isn't anymore. We are in a time and space in the industry where not only is self-publishing no longer a stigma or have that stigma surrounding it, but we're in a time when you can do both. If you're a self-published author, you can still get picked up by an agent, not necessarily for the book you self-published, but if you have self-published a book and you are doing a really great job marketing it and you're selling lots of copies, an agent and a publisher, they might be interested in that title to also traditionally publish it, but it will increase your odds of being looked at for your future work as well. I was recently at a conference in Calgary, and there is an agent there that I get to talk to every year, which is really exciting. And during a panel discussion that I was on with her, somebody asked this question, and I thought it was really, really fantastic to hear an actual agent's response to this. And somebody did ask, if I self-publish my book, will I ever be able to get picked up traditionally? And this agent said, absolutely. Self-publishing does not hinder agents from picking up your book. You just want to speak to, or picking up your book or future books. When you're querying, you just want to be really specific to the successes of that book and speak to them confidently. So it doesn't mean you're not going to get an agent, and it doesn't mean you're not going to get picked up traditionally. So remember that the space that we're in today is far different than the space we were in years and years and years ago. And you can still be looked at by agents and traditional publishers when you have self-published. I mean, and look at, all self-published first, and then went on to be traditionally done as well. So again, another myth busted, but it is very possible to still gain interest from a traditional, an agent or a traditional publisher if you have self-published your work before. So keep that in mind. And again, I'm cruising through here, so I think we're gonna have lots of time for questions. So looking at myth number 5, self-published books are of a lesser quality. So when I talk about quality of a self-published or of any book, I like to look at it from 2 avenues. I like to look at it from quality of the book, so editing, cover design, layout, and I like to look at it from print quality. So because self-publishing does allow you to work with professionals, just as traditional does. Traditional publishers, they have their editors, they have their design staff, they have they have everybody in-house that's going to work on your book. Self-publishing, you have access to editors, professional designers, layout, formatting. You have access to all of that as a self-publishing author. And you have the difference being you have the ability as a self-publishing author to choose who you're going to work with, where a traditional publisher will typically pair you with whomever they're working with. In self-publishing, you have the ability to say, I'm going to work with this editor, or I'm going to work with FriesenPress or this service provider, and that's who I'm going to work with. So you get more choice in the self-publishing world, but you still can meet those traditional level quality books with, you can still meet and match and exceed them with professional editing support and design. All of that is available to you. Excuse me. When we talk about print quality, excuse me again, I'm so sorry, guys. When we talk about print quality, most books that are POD are printed where they're printed. There are multiple print on demand type printers, but the biggest ones are used consistently by all avenue types. So if we have a book printed on demand versus a really large bulk print run, they're typically printed in the same places that other print on demand books are printed. And with bulk printing, so if you were a self-publishing author and you wanted to order 500 copies of your book, you also have access to bulk professional printers like Friesen's, just the same as traditional publishing houses do. So the quality is still going to be the same, whether you're printing on through a traditional avenue or self-publishing avenue. You have the availability to the same printers. You have the same access, to the same printers, to the same operational aspects as traditional publishers do in that aspect as well. And of course, working with Friesen's, you have the direct access to be able to print run, or working with FriesenPress, you have the direct access to Friesen's as well for those bulk orders. And then, so there we go. Myth number 5 busted. Check. Yeah. So moving on, those are the 5 myths and realities we were going to kind of go through today. And so before I move on to choosing a self-publishing partner, I'm going to just talk about the benefits and limits of self-publishing really quick, because with self-publishing, yes, you have full creative control. You are the author. This is your baby. You get to say, yes, I want that. No, I don't want that. You also get to maintain that ownership of your content. So if you self-publish a book and then you do get approached to do a movie, you don't have to check with anybody. You don't have to go to that publishing house and make sure you can do it or review your contract. You get that ownership of your content and you can move on. I also went over how you get to choose who you collaborate with. So whether you're going the DIY route and do it yourself route, or you are wanting to work with a service provider, you get to choose. You get to look at, you get to vet, you get to interview the people that you're going to work with along the way. So you get to choose who your collaborators are. And also, again, what we reviewed a little bit earlier is the higher royalty option. A lot of traditional published authors have, said to me, traditional royalties can look like 2%, 5%, 10%, whereas self-publishing can look like 45, 55, or 97%, depending on distribution options. So all of you are probably going, Leanne, but self-publishing now, it sounds so amazing. Why would anyone want to do anything else? That's because there are limitations to this as well, because self-publishing means that there are upfront costs for authors. A traditional house will give you an advance and pay for all of your editing and design and distribution and all of that. Whereas when you're self-publishing, all of that financial risk is on yourself. You're investing in yourself. And so there are costs to that upfront. Also, self-publishing can be more time consuming. A traditional publishing deal, if you're fortunate enough to come across and get one of those, looks very much like, here's my manuscript. And I want you to keep in mind when I'm talking about this, I am talking about the bigger publishing houses. The smaller independent publishing houses are a little bit more collaborative. I have found them a little bit more collaborative with the authors than the bigger houses are. But typically it's here's my manuscript and off they go. Not with self-publishing. It's finishing your manuscript is just the beginning. Truly. Even getting published is truly just still the beginning of your journey. So it is more time consuming because you're involved in every aspect as you go. So you are involved in your editing decisions. You go through and edit and you yay or nay those decisions. You're involved in your cover design and your layout and you yes and no decisions. You have your eyes on your book the entire way throughout the process. And it's up to you as the author to approve to the next steps to move forward. So it is more time consuming than the traditional route. But with the benefits, as you can see, far outweigh the limitations. So it's really just deciding what trajectory you want to take and making a plan to do so. I'm just going to take a sip of water. Give me one sec. There we go. All right. So moving on to choosing your self-publishing partner, or I should say partners. Whether you are going through and vetting your editors and designers, formatters, distribution support individually. So you're vetting them, you're interviewing them, you're picking each of those individually, or you're choosing to work with a service provider who has all of those people already pre-vetted, already vetted to be professional, a professional in their industry. I highly recommend that you look at Google reviews. Check out the BBB, Better Business Bureau, not only for the rating, but look at the number of complaints that are on the BBB. So, you could have somebody who has an A+ rating with lots and lots of complaints, and you could have somebody who has a lower rating with 2 complaints. So not only do you want to pay attention to the rating, but also the number of complaints that have been received and resolved in the last 1 year and 3 years, I think they divide it into. Reach out to authors who have used their services. So lots of times with Google reviews, or even just, Googling books published by FriesenPress or books edited by this person, you can find books and potentially make connections with those authors who have used those services, use those professionals, and get their take on it. Not everyone is going to have the same experience everywhere. So it's important to connect and get a real feel, because even if somebody had a not fantastic experience with an editor or a provider, they could provide insight for you as to why your experience might be better as well. So always connect with authors, and always, 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 without question, read the company's or individuals' contracts and service agreements to make sure that you understand it. Ask questions. I always say this. Nobody asks too many questions. An informed author is a prepared author. And so I highly encourage you, make sure you read service agreements, contracts, ask questions, make sure you understand things that you may not otherwise, to make sure you really know exactly what you're doing, and make sure you're aligning yourself. I think that it's so important to make sure that you're aligning yourself with individuals and companies that are going to be a good fit for you and for your book. So make sure that you're reading through, asking questions, and pay attention to answers. Always pay attention to answers, and ask for clarity when you're doing that. I really zoomed through this. So now we're now to the point where we've got lots of time for questions. So I'm really excited. One thing, everybody, before we get started on questions, you can either scan this QR code, or Brian is going to pop the link into the chat for everybody. We are giving one lucky person a free manuscript evaluation from those in attendance today. So please make sure you go to the link or scan the QR code and fill out the information there. And we'll be choosing a winner probably before the weekend to receive a free manuscript evaluation, which is a $500 value, and a professional editor, one of our professionally vetted editors, are going to read through your manuscript in its entirety and provide feedback. So usually it's 5 to 6 pages. It will include recommendations for your metadata, so BISAC codes, search keywords. It'll talk about its strengths, and it will go through your potential areas of improvement by taking examples. I love this part. By taking examples from your manuscript and pulling it into the evaluation to say, this is the type of editing I would recommend for your book, and this is what it would look like if we proceeded with that type of editing. So it's a really great document, whether you choose to work with FriesenPress or you want to use that to explore other avenues. It's a really great resource for all authors. So I highly recommend going in and entering for that. And yeah, so Brian, I think, has got a long list of questions. I'm going to stop presenting my screen for now. And there. So now I think we've got some questions.
Correct. Yes. So it's actually kind of great that we're running a bit ahead of time right now, because there are a lot of questions. I'm back on video because I was frantically typing answers to some people's questions. And thank you all for being so engaged in this presentation and for asking such phenomenal questions. Really appreciate a lot of the thoughtfulness I'm seeing in the chat. And to get us started, we had a number of questions about marketing. Mm-hmm. So to quickly kind of try to synthesize some of these for you, Leanne, people were wondering what marketing is like for self-publishing authors, expectations around that, and how FriesenPress kind of fits into that marketing portion. And thanks to Tracy and Lacey for asking some of those, and some others as well that I missed. But yeah, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, and that's a great question. And it's a question I get asked frequently and had the pleasure of answering about 100 times this weekend at a conference as well. So what is a surprise to a lot of authors is that marketing for self-published authors looks very similar to marketing for traditionally published authors. In that, as the author, you're responsible for your marketing and promotion. Traditional publishers will sometimes have PR companies that authors can go in and pay to, plan book launches and do social media and things like that. At FriesenPress, what we do is we offer marketing and promotion support and coaching. So we highly believe in empowering our authors to learn how to do this themselves so they don't have to pay for ongoing support consistently throughout the year. So we will help you set up your website. We'll help you set up your social media platform. Then we're going to coach you and teach you how to update it and use it and keep going with it. Another service we provide that I really love, and it's a little bit newer, is we will help you plan social media content, plug and play sort of social media content. So if you're not sure where to start with social media, not only will we help you set up your platform and coach you on how to use it and how to maintain it and update it, but we can also create a 30-day calendar for you that kind of gives you instructions that plug and play, like I said. So it might be on Tuesday, you're going to want to post about this. So you're going to need to go to a coffee shop and take a picture and use these hashtags that the chosen platform you're using is going to love for its algorithm. So we will support and help. We will not market and promote for you, but we will help to teach you to do those things on your own.
Awesome. I had a few questions as well about cost. So Lacey again, Demindra and Richard were asking about some costs that authors can expect. I think you could tackle this whether they want to choose FriesenPress or go on their own, what that might look like.
Yeah, so I mean, if we're looking at specificities of pricing right now, I don't know anything about your book, so I can't I can't give you specifics, but a quality book, you're going to be looking at editing. we recommend always doing a minimum of 1 round of editing. You're going to get a recommendation. It's up to you to follow that or not, but editing definitely is going to be something you're going to want to look at. FriesenPress publishing paths, and Brian might be able to pop a link into the chat with our website so you can see an overview. We're very transparent. All of our path pricing is on the website, so you can take a look at what's included in each path option and the initial costing there. And some of our paths include editing, some don't. And so when you're looking at the initial costs, we look at the word count of your book, how many images you have, what type, how many rounds of editing you want, what type of promotional support you might need. And we also find out what kind of investment you're looking at putting into your book as well. And we try very hard to match your investment to your wants and needs when and wherever possible. So your initial costs are kind of set up at that consultation stage. When you're looking at ongoing costs, the things you're going to want to consider are print runs. Do you want to have books on hand? Which I recommend you do. You don't have to have lots, but I always, like I said earlier, always recommend having books on hand. So how many books are you going to want to order? And also distribution fees. That's something that your initial distribution fees are included in every path with us. I believe it's 2 years. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Brian, but I believe it's 2 years. And then from there, you're just looking at a yearly distribution fee for your print books. And that fee is, we pay that directly to Ingram to keep your book into distribution. And that's your hardcover and paperback versions. Ebooks do not have an ongoing distribution fee. Those platforms are free to keep going on. So I hope that answered your questions. Let me know if it didn't.
Thanks, Leanne. Roger V had a question, and I believe someone else did. Apologies if I missed you. It's fast and furious in the chat here. There's some questions about the time it takes to publish. So after someone has finished their manuscript, perhaps, or is it kind of at that stage where an editor's input might be beneficial? How long it takes on average to get to that point of having books in hand?
Yeah, so publication and books in hand are 2 different things, but I can kind of speak to both. So once you have made your decision on, and I'm talking pretty specifically about FriesenPress timelines. If you were working directly with different service providers, they might have different timelines. If you're working with an editor and then also a cover designer separately, you might be looking at different timelines. But from choosing, if once you've said, yes, I think this is perfect, I'm going to move forward. It will depend on the services that you're looking at. In particular, editing. So each round of editing, we like to allow about 2 months, not only to have the edit done, but then also to return it to you for your review. So it really does depend on the amount of editing, but self-publishing can happen if you don't do editing with us, anywhere from 4 to 6 months to all the way, to 12 to 18 months, depending on how much editing you are getting, how many revisions you might need in your initial layout when it comes back, things like that. So I actually have personally published a book in as little as 3 months, but I've also seen authors take as long as 18 months. So timeline will vary depending on the needs of your project. However, once you've published, that doesn't mean that your books are in your hand. So from your publication date, once you're published, that's when we can submit book orders. So, and usually book orders take 3 to 5 weeks to ship, depending on the time of year. Closer to Christmas, a little longer. So when you're looking at potentially planning events and things like that for your book, you want to make sure that not only you're published, but you have your books ordered and you can see, okay, they're set to be delivered here, so I can start planning. Because even though you're published, it doesn't mean you've got books in hand tomorrow. It's still going to be you still want to plan an extra month to get those books printed and shipped to you.
Awesome. Oh, on that topic, Arlene has a great question. They say, I'm a first-time author and wondering when to submit a manuscript for review. Stuck in not good enoughness, in quotes, which I love, continually searching for personal, non-professional reviews of my work. So do you have any thoughts on that?
So as a writer, you're perpetually stuck in not good enoughness. So once your draft is finished, go through it once or twice more, get it to the best possible place that you can, and then have an editor review it. An editor can give you feedback on, if you have reservations about specific parts of your manuscript, you can ask for feedback specifically on that. You can say, oh, I'm finished, I've gone through it, but like this part or this ending, I'm not in love with. Do you have feedback? How can I make it better? So I think that you should have it reviewed so that you're not just perpetually stuck in the not good enoughness. It's going to help you better your manuscript, but also authors feel like their books are never done. I see it all the time where I just need to pass one more time. I just need to do another pass. I just need to do another pass. And there comes a point where you just need to have somebody read it. So if your draft is done and you've gone through it a few times, if you're at the point where you're feeling stuck and you're not sure what to do, that's the perfect time to have an editor review it so you can plan out your next steps.
Yeah, absolutely. Developmental editing, we often talk about as a great way to kind of break through that feeling stuck kind of mode where some authors think that editing is only for a completed manuscript, but we can help you with kind of getting it over the finish line, as it were. So yeah, great answer, Leanne. Great question, Arlene. Got two kind of, I'll jam these questions together. One from Cheryl S. What is the difference between Vanity Press and a publisher like FriesenPress? And Joni asked, how does FriesenPress self-publishing differ from other services such as Blurb or Amazon? So I think just where we fit in the space in the industry that we're in, if you can speak on that a little bit.
Well, for starters, I am trying to very hard get away from the term vanity publishing. I think that it's a really outdated term. And with the evolution of self-publishing and what it is today, it's not really an appropriate term to think of it as vanity publishing. When I think about vanity publishing, I think about self-publishing authors who aren't going to put a dime into their book. So they're not going to pay anybody to edit. They're not going to have a professionally designed cover. They're going to go straight to a distribution platform, upload the files, and away they go. To me, and to many other professionals that I talk to, that is what vanity publishing is. So FriesenPress is a service provider. So we provide services for self-publishing authors. So when you go to answer the question, so when you go straight to, I could just go off and off, so I'm going to stick to the question. If you go straight to Amazon, you are doing all of the pre-work yourself. So you are vetting your editors, you're choosing your cover designer, you're getting your book formatted, and then you're going to that platform, uploading it, and putting it into distribution that way. FriesenPress, we provide those services. So we're going to support you with editing if that's something you would like to pursue. We're going to cover your design professionally design your book cover. We're going to format your book for you. We are going to upload it to our distribution platforms, and we are going to do all of that for you. So it's the difference between literally doing it all yourself versus having an organization and a provider who's going to already have all of those professionals available and take you through the process. You also get somebody like a dedicated specialist who's going to take you through every step and make sure you check all the boxes before you move on to the next step, so you don't get to the end of the road and realize something was missed. So when you're looking at where we kind of fit, you don't need to come to us with fully designed files, a fully edited book, nothing like that. You can come to us with your Word document, and we can support you along the way and get you set up in the distribution channels without you having to go straight to those channels yourself.
Awesome. Got some questions. Again, kind of trying to synthesize a few different questions together here, but a few folks were asking about if we do illustrations. Headline answer is yes, we absolutely do. We have an illustrations team. But I think people were looking for some insight about our process, kind of the feedback that we give, how we work with authors to get the professional illustrations. So can you speak on that a bit?
Yeah. So yes, we do have illustrators. We have a great team of illustrators who have a variety of different mediums as well. So digital, watercolor, pencil, like we have a variety of different mediums that can be used as well as different tiers. So we have different tiers of editing that can be more situated for children's books versus if you wanted a really gorgeous custom illustration for your cover. There's different tiers there. The illustration process itself, in a nutshell, is you have a dedicated publishing specialist that you work with. So that publishing specialist is your advocate on this side of things. So they are the ones who are coordinating directly with your editor, directly with your designer. They're doing the back and forth for you on this side so that you just have one main point person who's going to be in control and know everything about your book. So you would first kind of give us a little bit of information about the type of illustration you're looking for, what kind of color scheme you're looking for, if you're wanting something whimsical or more juvenile, or you can kind of tell us what we're looking at, what you would like to see with your illustrations. We're going to pull portfolios for you to look at that are kind of a match for your needs. And from there, you're going to choose an illustrator. Then you're going to work with your publishing specialist. And there's typically about 4 rounds. You're going to fill in your scene descriptions, what you want to see in each of your illustrations. The illustrator is going to put together pencil sketches, initial pencil sketches, and send those back to you. You're going to look at them and say, yes, I love these, or I love these, but can we change a few things? So usually we start off with pencil sketches. Pencil sketches, starting there allows you to be able to say, oh, I really love this illustration, but can we put this guy on the other side of the page? Or I really love this illustration, but can this character's hair be curly instead of straight? So it's going to allow you to make, those kind of more obvious and bigger changes. Then it goes back to the illustrator. They implement those changes, comes back to you again. From there, so you kind of get to see pencil sketches twice, usually. Unless you go, these are perfect, we're done, I don't need any revisions. Then we hop into colors. So then the illustrator is going to go in, add in color, and send it back to you. And that's going to be your ability to say, I love this, but I don't like that green. Can we make it blue instead? So that's going to be your ability to change color aspects. Then it's going to go back. They're going to implement all those changes, come back to you for final approvals. So it's usually pencil sketches, then you get revisions on those pencil sketches, color sketches, and then revisions on the color sketches. And then your illustrations are done and ready for your book.
Amazing. We have had a few folks who are interested in our distribution network and specifically international distribution. So can you speak a bit about where we distribute our books and where in the world they are?
Absolutely. So, excuse me. So not only do we have FriesenPress Bookstore, which you can take a peek at anytime online, but our main distribution partner is Ingram, and that is global distribution. So there's printers all over the world that essentially, if someone on Amazon.uk, if Amazon.uk picks up your book and is listing it, and someone in the UK wants to buy it, Ingram's going to find the closest one of their printers and print from that printer and ship to the author. So it's global distribution. So essentially anybody who has any retailer that has an Ingram account is going to have access to your book's listing to be able to pick it up and list it. Of course, not every retailer on Ingram is going to pick up your book. If you have a children's book and it's a mystery bookstore, they're not going to pick up your kid's book. So the network is large, but it doesn't mean every retailer is going to pick up your book. And you have the ability to also approach bookstores that they may not pick up your book automatically, which is fine. And then you could go to, I don't know, say Chapters Indigo or Barnes and Noble and say, I really want to be carried in store. What do I do? And you can let them know where your book is available and you can coordinate with that as well. But your book is available globally to over 50,000 retailers. And what's really amazing as well is Ingram also has a program called Global Connect. So if your book gets picked up by a distributor in a country where Ingram doesn't have a printer, they have partnerships with printers in those countries to make sure that we can still print books for those who are purchasing in those countries as well. So it's a really nice wide network of possibilities there.
Cool. And a few folks were also asking about where our books are printed. I think it's a very hot topic right now for obvious reasons. And it's a great question. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so we have printing options both in Canada and around the world. So print on demand books, the one at a time books are typically printed with Ingram printers, which are located in the US and around the world. We also have Friesens, which is in Canada, allowing our authors the ability to print right in Canada and distribute that way as well through them. So we have options on both sides of our North American border, and we're constantly looking at options to evolve and give more options. But right now it's Ingram and Friesens are our main printers.
Perfect. Got a question from James here, and it's very simple, and I really like it. My manuscript is almost ready for review. What next?
Yeah, well, let's get it reviewed. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to connect with your publishing consultant, which is somebody on my team, and we're going to talk about your book. We're going to learn what it's about. We're going to talk about what's your word count, how many images do you have you already had it edited? No. What type of editing, or some authors can come in with a really in tune feeling of, mechanically my book is fantastic, but I really think my characters might have a couple, I might need help developing out those characters. So some authors can come in very aware and say, I think I'm going to need, a little bit of contextual editing. So we talk about what your project is about, what your initial thoughts on what you're going to need are, and we're going to put together a few options for you. So that's essentially your next step is let's chat and let's have a talk with a consultant and learn about your book and learn about your project.
Here we go. Hope that was helpful, James. We have another question. Well, there's actually, again, a couple of questions about ownership. So some folks were asking about ownership of cover art when it's done, ownership of illustrations. So can you speak a bit about that and how that works with publishing with FriesenPress?
Yeah. So it's a little bit, okay, so cover art and illustrations is going to be a little different. So I'm going to divide that into two. So content ownership, we've already talked about. You maintain content ownership 1,000 and 50,000%. The content is yours. Once the files are made, FriesenPress, and it's part of our service agreement, and our service agreement is public. You can go and view it anytime. As I said, we like to be as transparent as possible. FriesenPress maintains the distribution rights to your book for 12 months, for a minimum of 12 months after you publish, which means the cover, the production files of your book are owned by FriesenPress, but the content, your words, are owned by you. If after 12 months of you being in distribution with us, you go, you know what, this has been great, but I really want to try this. You do have the ability to come to us to say, I would like to purchase my production files, which means, and there is a cost to this, and I'll tell you why. You can come to us and say, I'd like to purchase my production files to take them elsewhere. And the reason there's a cost to it is because our designers will go in and they're going to strip FriesenPress from your book. So they're going to take off the FriesenPress logos. We're going to take the ISBNs off of the back of your book, because if you're pulling it, you're going to be putting a new product out there. You're going to want to get your own ISBN numbers as well. So you have the ability to to purchase those files back, and you can take them to another, distribution partner, or another platform, or and you get to do whatever you want with those, because you've now purchased them from us and you own them. And the cost associated with that is very much because we go in and we take FriesenPress out of them. So then you get the print PDFs of your book, and off you go. But we retain the rights for a minimum of 12 months from publication, because we did a lot of glorious work on your book as well. We made that cover, and we made we made that, and we want to have our logo on that work to say we're very proud of this book, and we want to know people to know that we made it. Illustrations are a little bit different. So you maintain the copyright of the illustrations for your book. So for your book specifically, for that one book, you will maintain the copyright of the illustrations provided. You can use those illustrations in any way you would like promotionally. So, if you're making maybe, I don't know, free bookmarks, or maybe you're doing a teaser trailer for, promotional aspects or things like that, you can use those illustrations for promotional pieces. However, the moral rights ownership is with the illustrator. It's not with FriesenPress, and it's not with you, it's with the illustrator. So if there's something where you've worked on the illustrators worked on these illustrations, you're coming out the other side and you go, you know what, I really would love to make a stuffed animal out of my illustrations so that people can buy a stuffed animal. That's where you would go to your publishing specialist and say, I'd really like to discuss the moral rights ownership. Can you please give the illustrator my information? We will give the illustrator your information, and the illustrator will reach out to you if they're wanting to have that discussion with you. If you were to come back and say you did a kid's book in English, and then you came back and you wanted to do it in French, you just needed the exact same illustrations. You can use the exact same illustrations 100%. Instead of paying for the same illustrations, the same amount you paid for the first book, you just have to pay an illustration reuse, so that the copyright for that second book is also available to you. I believe it's $40 per illustration. So if you had 13 illustrations, it would be 13 times $40. So you can use them for multiple projects if you're not making any changes to them. But the moral rights remain with the illustrator unless you're interested in pursuing that, in which case we would ask the illustrator to connect with you. They're not owned by FriesenPress, but the illustrator. And that reuse fee for future books, that's to make sure in other avenues, what you might see is that in children's books, a royalty on the book is split between the writer and the illustrator. We don't do that. So the reuse fee for future projects that might be in a different language are very specifically to make sure that the illustrator gets compensated for future use of that work as well. That might have been a really in-depth answer and maybe too granular, but it's a decent overview.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for. We're here to learn. Let's get deep. We're almost at time here. I've done my best to copy and paste as many questions that I can that we didn't get to, but let's do one more. And someone asked about book pricing and how we help with that, how we approach it. So if you want to take it away from there.
That's a great question. So once your layout of your book is done, we won't know what your book print costs are going to be until your layout's done. We have to know your page count. We have to know all of those things. So once your layout is done and we have an idea of what your final page count is going to be, that's when we can start to have book pricing conversations. And essentially the printer, so either Ingram or Friesens, depending, is going to say, okay, this is their page count. for their paperback version and their hardcover version, this is what it's going to be to print the book. So Ingram or Friesens tells us what that information, and we we basically create and assign every author a form based off of the size of their book and what their print cost is going to be. So there's going to be, when you price your book, there's going to be a minimum list price based off of the print and production cost of your book. And then we're gonna give you a suggestion for your retail price. Now, when you set your retail price in that form, not only are you going to be able to see what the retail price is, but you're also going to see what your associated royalty would be. So just for easy math, say your production cost of your book is $10 a book and you price your book at $20 a book. You're going to see what your royalty is going to be if your book is $20 right in the form. So there's no surprises. Your royalty, the royalty you set is the royalty you get on your books. So once we know what the print cost is going to be, the production cost of your book is going to be individually. We will make suggestions. You're going to have a publishing specialist to hop on the phone and have conversations and really, get more granular on your particular project. But we will make recommendations to be aligned with your genre or, the size of your book and things like that as well. So we support and advise on book pricing and very transparently so that you always know what your royalty is going to be off of each version of your book. I hope did that answer it? I hope so.
Thanks, Leanne. Lots of great activity, and we're just over 3, and I know some people might be on their lunch break joining us today, so we'll wrap it there. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. Here, I'm going to just for 1 second here. I'm just going to put my contact info up here. You may already have a publishing consultant and you may not. And if you do already have a publishing consultant, you can reach right out to them for more questions. If you don't have a publishing consultant and you want to have a conversation, email me. Email is easier to get me on than on the phone. So email me and I can have one of either me or my team reach out to you to talk more about your book. But if you have a publishing consultant, definitely reach out to them and start chatting.
Thanks, everyone. We're going to be running these webinars monthly. So really appreciate you being here and sticking it out right to the bitter end. And we hope to see you at the next one.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Take care.